My name is Rachel. I'm 29 years old, and a few weeks ago, my own family looked me in the eye and quietly decided that I was too expensive to bring on vacation. They didn't say it harshly. There was no shouting, no dramatic argument, no slammed phone. It came wrapped in a sigh, delivered casually, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. It happened during one of those evening phone calls that feel harmless until they aren't. I was standing in my kitchen after work, reheating leftovers and scrolling through emails, when my mom called. She sounded tired, worn down in the familiar way that usually meant she wanted sympathy. "We're broke," she said after a pause. "We just can't afford to take you on vacation this year." Before I even had time to respond, my brother laughed through the speaker. That laugh, the one he uses when he wants something to sound playful but sharp at the same time, the kind of laugh that says, "You know this already, why are you surprised?" For a second, I didn't say anything. I just stood there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the microwave clock like it might explain what was happening. I'd spent years helping them. Years. I'd covered overdue bills, loaned money for temporary problems that never quite went away, sent transfers late at night because something urgent had come up again. And now, somehow, I was the expense they needed to cut. I forced a small laugh. "Yeah, sure, no worries, I get it." Because that's what I always do. I make it easy. I smooth things over. I tell myself not to take it personally. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen longer than I needed to. I told myself they must really be struggling this time. I told myself skipping one family vacation wasn't a big deal. I told myself I was being dramatic for feeling hurt. So I did what I always do when I feel pushed aside. I adjusted. I planned a small solo trip to New York using credit card points I'd been hoarding for years. Nothing fancy, no hotel splurge, just a friend's couch, cheap meals, walking everywhere instead of taking cabs, the kind of trip where you convince yourself it's exactly what you wanted all along. I thought that was the end of it. Then I got to the airport. It was early morning at Bush Intercontinental. The terminal buzzed with that tired, rushed energy, kids whining, people dragging suitcases, the echo of announcements bouncing off the ceiling. I joined the long economy check-in line, rolling my small carry-on behind me, already preparing myself for a middle seat and no legroom. That's when I heard it. A laugh. Familiar. Loud. Confident. My stomach dropped before my brain could catch up. I turned my head slowly, already knowing what I was about to see. There they were. My mom, my brother, his wife, their kids, standing at the first-class check-in counter. They looked relaxed, comfortable, happy. My mom leaned casually against a sleek suitcase, sipping coffee like she did this every week. My brother chatted easily with the airline agent, his body language confident, practiced. His wife snapped selfies, angling the camera just right. The kids bounced on their feet, excitement spilling out of them. They didn't look broke. They looked like a family about to post vacation photos. I stood frozen in the economy line, my boarding pass clutched in my hand like it suddenly weighed 100 pounds. "Daddy, does this mean we get the big seats?" my niece asked, holding up her boarding pass. My brother grinned. "That's right, sweetheart. We're doing this trip right." My mom laughed. "After everything we've been through, we deserve something nice." I felt my face burn, my chest tighten. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been told they couldn't afford to take me anywhere, that I should stay home so I wouldn't cost them money. And here they were, flying first class to Orlando, Florida, the exact kind of family trip I had suggested. For a moment, I wondered if I should walk over, say hello, ask casually how they'd gone from broke to first class so quickly. I imagined their faces, surprise, discomfort, the scramble for an explanation. But I didn't move. I turned away before any of them noticed me. I let the economy line carry me forward while they slipped into priority security, past the ropes, past the curtain, past me. On the plane, wedged into a middle seat between strangers, I replayed everything. I tried to bargain with the truth. Maybe the tickets were a deal. Maybe it was points. Maybe they were embarrassed they couldn't pay my share. But the excuses didn't hold. They could afford it. They just chose not to include me. New York was loud and bright and full of movement, but part of me stayed behind in that airport. I smiled in photos, I laughed with friends, but inside, something had shifted. A quiet realization that hurt more than anger ever could. 2 weeks later, my phone rang again. Mom. Normally, I would have answered immediately, already preparing myself to help. This time, I stared at the screen. I could still see her at the first-class counter, smiling, saying she deserved something nice. I answered anyway. She started with small talk, asked about my trip, said I hoped I'd had fun, then her voice changed, softened, that familiar tone wrapped in guilt. Things have been really tight. The gas bill is overdue. The mortgage company called again. Could you help out just this once? Just this once. I took a breath. Were things tight when you booked first-class tickets to Orlando? I asked. Silence. I saw you at the airport 2 weeks after you told me you were broke. She tried to explain. Deals, points. The kids needed it. Your brother worked hard. We couldn't take everyone. I'm not mad you went, I said. I'm mad you lied, and I'm mad you made me feel like a burden. She didn't have an answer for that. I told her I was done sending money. No more covering bills, no more emergencies, no more automatic transfers. She cried. She accused me of being ungrateful. She reminded me of everything she'd done for me growing up. But for the first time, I didn't fold. The next day, my brother called. He didn't bother with small talk. What the hell is wrong with you? He snapped. Mom says you cut her off. I told him the same thing. You don't have kids, he said. You don't understand real responsibility. I understand, I replied. I understand I've been paying for yours. He called me selfish, cold, said I was tearing the family apart. I ended the call. Then the messages came. Guilt, anger, silence. And slowly, reality caught up to them. Bills didn't get paid. The mortgage fell further behind. The house I grew up in went on the market. My parents downsized. My brother sold his SUV. The kids left their activities. The vacations stopped. From a distance, I watched their lives shrink back to what they could actually afford. And my life, quietly, grew. For the first time, my paycheck stayed mine. I built savings. I slept better. I planned trips without guilt. I got promoted at work because I finally had the energy to focus on myself. It hurt to see my family struggle. It hurt to be blamed, but it hurt less than being used. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped cushioning their fall. And for the first time in my life, I stopped apologizing for choosing myself. For a long time after I stopped sending money, my phone felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful at first, just empty, like the moment after a storm when the air hasn't decided what it wants to do yet. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, expecting another call, another crisis, another just this once, but the screen stayed dark more often than not. When messages did come, they were different. Not requests, not emergencies, accusations. My mom sent long texts late at night, paragraphs stacked with guilt and disbelief. She wrote about how she never raised me to be this way, how family was supposed to stick together, how she couldn't recognize the daughter she'd sacrificed everything for. Every message ended with the same unspoken expectation: you'll break eventually. Matt's messages were shorter, sharper. He blamed me for everything that was unraveling, said I'd changed, said money had turned me cold, said I was punishing the kids to prove some point. I read his words without replying, noticing how none of them included responsibility for the choices he'd made. I muted the thread. That was the first boundary that actually held. Without the constant noise of their problems, my apartment felt different. Too quiet at first. I noticed sounds I hadn't before: the hum of the fridge, the traffic outside, my own footsteps moving from room to room. It was uncomfortable sitting with myself without distraction, but slowly that discomfort turned into space. I started seeing my finances clearly for the first time in years. There were no surprise withdrawals, no late-night transfers, no mental math about whether helping them meant skipping groceries or delaying a bill. My money stayed where I put it, and something about that felt almost unreal. I opened a real savings account, not a vague someday account, one labeled future. The word felt strange, like it didn't quite belong to me yet. A few weeks passed, then a month. That's when the consequences stopped being abstract and started becoming visible. I heard things through extended family first. A cousin mentioned my parents were thinking about selling. An aunt hinted that things were tighter than anyone realized. No one asked me directly for help yet, but the tone had shifted. There was confusion in their voices, discomfort, the quiet realization that the usual solution wasn't stepping in. One evening, my mom called again. I hesitated before answering. I wasn't afraid anymore, just tired. She didn't bother with small talk this time. "The bank sent a final notice," she said. I stayed silent. "We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. Your father's medical bills wiped out what little savings we had left, and after the trip, the credit cards. Rachel, we're in real trouble." There it was. Not a single bill, not a temporary problem. The house. The house I grew up in, the one she'd always described as for the family, the one she insisted she was protecting with every sacrifice. Old me would have panicked, would have asked for numbers, would have opened spreadsheets and started rearranging my life to save theirs. Instead, I asked a simple question. "When did you miss the first payment?" She paused, just long enough. "We were juggling things," she admitted. "We thought we could catch up." She didn't say it, but I heard it anyway. "We thought you'd step in." "And you still went to Orlando," I said quietly. Her grief flipped into anger instantly. "We needed that trip," she snapped. "Your father was depressed. The kids were disappointed. We thought if we just had one good week, we could deal with everything after." I closed my eyes. "This didn't happen overnight," I said. "This isn't because I said no once. This is years of spending money you didn't have and expecting me to fill the gap." She cried. She begged. She reminded me of memories, holidays, birthdays, the nights she stayed up with me when I was sick. Every word was a hook, carefully aimed at the version of me that used to fold. But I didn't. "I love you," I told her, "but your mortgage is not my responsibility. It never was." When we hung up, my hands were shaking, not with fear, with grief. Grief for the family I thought I had, grief for the role I'd played for so long without realizing the cost. A week later, the house went on the market. Not in some dramatic foreclosure moment, no shouting, no sirens, just a realtor sign quietly appearing on the front lawn. I drove past it once, alone, and sat in my car longer than I meant to. The windows were dark. The porch looked smaller than I remembered. It wasn't the house that hurt. It was the truth it represented. My parents downsized into a small rental across town, the kind of place my mom used to criticize when we drove past similar neighborhoods. Matt and his wife sold their SUV and moved out of their forever home into a cramped townhouse. The kids switched schools. Soccer and dance disappeared from their schedules. The lifestyle they'd built on optimism and my bank account collapsed back into reality. And somehow I became the villain. Extended family members started reaching out, carefully worded messages. They're going through so much. You're really the only one who can help. Family doesn't abandon family. I gave the same answer every time. I helped for years. They chose not to change. I'm choosing not to go down with them. Some understood. Most didn't. But something strange happened as the months passed. My life stabilized. Without the emotional drain of being everyone's safety net, I had energy again. At work, I focused better. I spoke up more. I stopped apologizing for needing time or space. My boss noticed. A few months later, I got promoted. Better pay, more responsibility, the kind of opportunity I'd always been too distracted to fully step into. I booked another trip. This one paid for entirely with my own money. No points, no guilt, just intention. One evening, sitting alone in my apartment, promotion email open on my laptop, and a travel confirmation in my inbox, I finally understood something that had taken me nearly 30 years to learn. My value to my family had never been about who I was. It was about what I provided. When I stopped providing, they treated it like betrayal. But the truth was simpler and harder to accept. I outgrown a role that was never meant to be permanent. Do I feel sad that my parents lost the house? Yes. Do I wish things had gone differently? Of course. I would have helped them gladly if they'd been honest, if they'd included me because they loved me, not excluded me until they needed my money again. That's the line now. Family, to me, is people who share your last name and treat your income like a shared account. Family is people who see you as a human being, not a resource. People who respect your limits. People who don't only show up when they need something. If you're reading this and you feel like the walking ATM of your family, like your worth disappears the moment your wallet closes, hear this. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you free. The people who truly love you may be hurt, they may struggle, but they will adapt. The ones who only loved what you could give them will fall away. That loss will hurt, but it will also tell you the truth. My mom once told me, "We're broke, we can't afford to take you on vacation." What she didn't realize was that the real thing I couldn't afford anymore was the way they treated me. So I stopped paying that price. And for the first time in my life, I'm living a future that belongs to me.